Hello and welcome back. Mostly for myself. See, I already have some people here. Mr. Party Yardy, good to see you. Welcome back. Yes, long time no see. I was like, I should. It's been strange times, weird times. I'm like, might as well start streaming again. I got a whole new computer set up here. I've got all sorts of other things I don't even know if it's gonna work. We're gonna find out. You'll have to tell me how my levels are doing because literally everything except for the monitors I'm looking at in my video camera is new. So like all the back end, everything is just different now. So thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. It's cool to start up again a little bit and try to do it. Oh, that's excellent. I've put a huge amount of time into like making it kind of work. That doesn't mean I know what the end result on the other side kind of looks like, but yeah. So that's good to hear. Yes, the room well, it's a whole other thing. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I figure this I don't know how long I'm gonna stream. Like I just gonna try to do an old like just my normal thing and see how it goes. I'm gonna try to, grab a random paper for philosophy roulette 253 and have at it. Cuz that's how it goes. So yeah, this is philosophy roulette where I read and review philosophy papers live on air for the Twitch community and then later on YouTube. Feel free to ask questions along the way about any and anything. Usually on the paper topic, but hell, you can ask whatever you want. We'll see about getting it. AI in Society, Asian Journal of Philosophy. Look at Australasian Journal of Philosophy. Lots of stuff up. I feel like I should just go to analysis. You know what? I'm just gonna go to analysis. I have no patience at the moment for searching through things, but I feel like I should. Let's see what AI in Society has here. See if they have anything interesting up. The effects of visual and informational complexity of news website designs on comprehension and memorizing among undergraduate students. Now, see, that sounds cool. Doesn't sound like a whole lot of philosophy, but it sounds very cool, like something to know about, like how busy a news website is, and how fast people can gather information based on how crazy your website is. Doing it from the ground truth up, doing AI ethics from practice to principles. This is like super short. 7 pages. Is this, you know what? Let's see if this is available. Screw it. Find out. 7 pages. Downloadable. If this is a. Hey, look at that. Okay, it's not. It's a very small font, but whatever. I'm gonna try this because you know what? We can. So let's see if the new update system works. It's not going to work. Let's see. Yep. I gotta break this up myself. I gotta fix that. And there we go. That looks a lot better. Um, Even better. Can I go like this? There we go. Look at that. See something new here. Right. And let's grab the link. Throw that in chat. And now if this works, it'll be amazing. Let's see if this works. Alright, so now, as always, because this is completely new. I used to do this through Nightbot, but now I'm doing it through Leorin board. So, and it didn't work. Alright, so if, why didn't you work? Ah, because it's disconnected, that's why. Why are we disconnected? Let's see. Why are we disconnected from Twitch chat? That's kind of amazing. You know, it's funny because I have a whole new setup here with Leorn board, and this is like the first time Twitch chat has failed to connect. So, connect, would you? Done. Huh. So interesting that all of a sudden now this does not work. Just one time today. Okay. Well, that's okay. If you want the paper, just ask me for the paper and I'll try to get it to you. But no, why is Twitch chat not working? That is amazing. I'm going to try one more time because... Alright. This is fine. This is fine. And then Twitch chat. Huh. Oh, come on. That's amazing. So Leorn board is down. Like the, what? Why is Leorn board down? That's just so weird. Connect. Connect, 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 connect. Okay. Well, screw it. The one thing that was supposed to work did not work. How do you like that? Okay. Still, we shall try. Hey, are we not going to work, Ocular? Oh, wow, yeah. Oh, thank you, Viewbot Prime. You sound like a Decepticon or something. But, like, that's awesome, Viewbot Prime. I appreciate you being here. Like Optimus Prime or something. Yeah. I haven't been streaming very much, but, like, you know, cool. Welcome. And we got this paper here from AI in Society. From the ground truth up, doing AI ethics from practice to principles. So maybe we'll learn something about, you know, the drone strikes that are happening in the world nowadays. All right, without further ado, here we go. Yeah, and if you want the paper, for some reason my my bot's down today, which is very strange because I don't know if you can see it, like at the top up here where it says EchoBot NXW bot, like that was working literally 10 minutes before stream, and then it decided it was not gonna work anymore. I can't tell you why. So I can't do all the stuff I was planning on doing. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Partiardi. I appreciate it. Okay, artificial intelligence is knowledge produced from pattern recognition, which contrasts with the Kantian vision of human knowledge as created from sequential reasoning. This distinction at and as the source of understanding itself means AI cannot be relied upon to obey human conventions of rationality. So, an ethics is needed to domesticate the machines. Alright, so immediately, right here, just because it does it in a different method doesn't mean that it cannot be relied upon. I don't think the same way you think. That does not mean, like, you're more reliable than me or I'm more reliable than you. So, just starting off, I'm not even sure that this is a good argument. Like, I understand their point, like, because machines reason different than us, but that immediately tells me that we even know what we have. Like, just because it's Kantian doesn't mean that it, in some sense, is different from what is going on with the computers. But, like, already from, like, this spot, like, boom, like, right there. I don't know. Okay. Initial work has been largely theoretical, with 84 sets of principles introduced in the last several years and more on the way. They accumulate along with a challenge. Morally, fluidity Kinsey and El Halal 2020 write that these abstract principles that urgently require effective translation for application in concrete reality. Sorry, the music's actually kind of loud for me. I'm going to put it down a little bit. About that, they're right, but not completely. The gap between theory and practice also implies complementary investigating in the other direction. Instead of descending from principles to practice, these explorations start from palpable human experiences and only subsequently climb to abstraction and the theoretical work of comparing and justifying principles. Okay, so the question is, what would a practice for a computer be, like from the ground up? Ruffles Hot Wings flavor, what's going on here? Basically what goes on here is I read academic philosophy and I comment on it live and we chat about what's going on. This is a paper about how we're going to figure out what an AI ethics is. So we're talking about artificial intelligence ethics right now. And the question this author is asking is, how do we make an ethics for AI when their structure of their knowledge is different from us? So they're saying we have to start from palpable human experience or something, which I don't actually know what that means, but we'll find out when it applies to machines. Like, what is a palpable ethical experience for a robot? I have no idea what an ethical experience for a robot is. Heck, I mean, I'm trying to remember what an ethical experience for a human is. Okay, so yeah, feel free to ask questions, do whatever along the way. It's all good. This report covers the initial phase of that grounded process, the birth of insight and ethical propositions from philosophers, engineers, and medical doctors laboring to make AI work for flesh and blood patients. As for these emergent and speculative propositions, there is no pretension here to defend them against the rules promulgated by today's institutional powers. The ambition is only to demonstrate how ethics can surge from men and women struggling with algorithms and statistics. Alright, so are we still talking about, like, you know, the people involved, or is it like the machines themselves that are gonna generate the AI? I don't know. And feel free to chime in. Where does ethics come from? Is it from experience? And if it's from experience, do robots or AI have the sort of experience that could, come into like a full-flavored ethics? Well, see, what's interesting, Ruffles, is that this person started off just before you got here comparing it with Kantianism. And so they may have a similar thing, similar idea in mind as you do, but they're starting off with deontology. And so they're trying to get some sort of deontological model, I think, out of this, which is very interesting because you might think that, like, computers might be able to, utilitarian add up the utility, but maybe that's not where they're going. So we're going to find out. Okay. Going from practice to principles starts with cases. The two discussed here were produced by a team of philosophers, computer scientists, lawyers, and doctors organized out of the Frankfurt Big Data Lab in Germany. Working with algorithmic startup companies, we collaboratively explore their development experiences with attention split between ethics, technology, law, and medicine. Our skin lesion case started with a team led by Andreas Dengel and their solution to a debility currently afflicting artificial intelligence diagnoses of skin cancer. Typically, a skin lesion image is analyzed by a neural network to predict whether the lesion is malignant. The procedure is non-invasive, quick, and in terms of accuracy, machines are now outperforming well-trained dermatologists. Still, the technology's use remains limited. The obstacle is the AI black box. Doctors may be convinced that the image analysis generally works better than their own eyes and experience, but because there is no way to know how the machine reached its conclusion in any particular case, they constantly fear their patients may be an outlier. While aberrations are statistically improbable, there is no escaping the startling errors accompanying advances in image recognition technology. There is even a narrow research area dedicated to provoking comedically wrong outputs, like bananas mistaken for toasters. Alright, so this is a good point. When you have a black box, which most AI are, like most of the time well, even if you can figure out what the computer's doing, separating it is a lot of work. It's very hard. It's not so easy to do. So if you're just saying, well, is this cancer or is this not? There's no responsibility there, because there, it's like the old, who are you asking? You're just saying, well, ask the cloud, ask Google, whatever, but you don't take any personal responsibility for the output. And so where's the ethical thing there? Because you're basically flipping a switch and saying, well, whatever happens, it's like rolling the dice and saying, well, you have cancer or you don't. Now, these are very well weighted dice to, get it right, but you're still rolling the dice. And there's something I can appreciate that doctors don't want to roll dice in some sense to, when someone's life is on the line. Okay. The result is that the barrier to AI-fortified skin health is not technologically advanced so much as doctors' confidence. And that apprehension converted into a business opening for Dengel and his team. Their explainable AI in dermatology product, or XAID, wraps around existing artificial intelligence diagnoses and translates the AI method into traditional medical language and reasoning. With the AI processing explained, dermatologists may confirm or reject the mechanical diagnoses in their own human terms, and so conclude with sufficient confidence to recommend action. Technology that was accurate but neglected now becomes practically useful. Okay, so that's interesting. They built in the breakdown of what the machine's doing. So they don't actually have a black box, or they do have a black box and they're bullshitting the reasons. I wouldn't put that past people. But like, as long as people feel better about it, it's still getting used. So there's a question: is, are they lying, or are they actually giving legit diagnoses based on what the AI says? I don't know, but that's funny. Okay, the other case starts from cardiac arrest in Denmark, and with the team led by Stig Nikolaj Blomberg, and I apologize how I say everyone's name, they responded to an urgent question. Could AI eavesdrop on frantic 112 calls, the European 911, and perceive humanly imperceptible clues that the subject was suffering cardiac arrest as opposed to some less urgent malady? The information is crucial as cardiac arrest requires specific and immediate treatment, even from bystanders, since every minute without resuscitation increases fatality probability by about 10%. Dispatchers at Denmark's emergency medical center were failing to identify 1/4 of the incoming cardiac arrest calls, and so losing precious opportunities to provide the caller with instructions in cardiopulmonary resuscitation. To save lives, Blomberg's group developed a machine learning tool to detect cardiac arrest and then alert dispatchers with a light added to their console. When the technology was implemented, it produced unsurprising and also surprising results. Unsurprisingly, true cardiac arrest was recognized more frequently and quickly by the artificial intelligence than by its human partner. However, the machine was also less specific. The AI returned many false positive alerts, which were largely ignored by the dispatchers. This led to the surprising result. The dispatchers also largely ignored the true positive alerts. They ignored the AI almost entirely. Dejectedly, Blomberg concluded, while a machine learning model recognized a significantly greater number of out-of-hospital cardiac arrests than the dispatchers alone, this did not translate to improved cardiac arrest cognition by dispatchers. That makes a lot of sense, to tell you the truth. No one likes false positives. It's the old, the boy calling wolf. And it's funny, is this in Denmark too, where the original story's from? I forget. But when you get overwhelmed with alert messages, you tend to discount all of the alert messages, even if they are overall supposedly good to monitor. It's you get alert message fatigue very quickly, and this is known in computer science. So that's what happened here. So that's interesting, but so really what would have to happen is they have to tamp down on the number of alerts. It has to be, let more real cases like false negative slip through, but like then it would actually get used. So, explainability or performance. At the highest level, European AI ethics is dedicated to creating technology that is trustworthy. Both cases confronted that trust problem, but the project leaders diverged on the question underneath. Why believe in algorithmic conclusions in the first place? This uncertainty is not so much about how confidence exists, but on what the confidence is built. The distinction divided the teams fundamentally. Dengel's X-Aid product builds trust from explainability. Machine image analysis will be accepted when it is understood. Consequently, his AI wrapper is built to show how skin images are classified and to verify that the processing functions through disease-related concepts similar to those employed by conventional dermatologists. The key is to translate away from the statistics and probabilities and into several clinical skin characteristics perceived through close visual inspection. They are typical pigment network, atypical pigment network, streaks, regular dots and globules, irregular dots and globules, blue whitish veil. The presence of these telling traits is quantified by X-Aid and then overlaid on the image of the skin lesions under scrutiny before being returned to the dermatologist. What is significant here is that the outputted numbers do not replace the image with an objective result. Instead, they describe the image. They direct doctors' attention back to specific visual evidence so they can check for themselves. Without the X-Aid wrapper, all a dermatologist receives is a cold numerical probability sent back in return for the submitted images. With the wrapper, the statistics no longer substitute skin pictures, they enhance them. Alright, this is actually really smart because the number one thing they're not doing is sending the number back, which is what was like, it's just not the light going off like the other one. They're actually enhancing the picture. So what they're really doing is they're not actually giving a decision on is there cancer or is there not cancer. What they're doing is they're using AI to enhance images. So it's an AI described image, not an AI cancer determining image. And so that's you're right, as the author said, a complete mental shift between the groups and how they thought about what they're doing. And so this is even though it's a black box model, we don't know how the computer picked out those areas to describe. It is just saying, look at these important areas. This is what the computer thinks is important and why we think it's important, or why the computer thinks important, which then gives the doctor a bias to looking at those certain things. And as long as the bias is a good bias, because it does lead to correct outcomes, then that's very impressive. Okay, in essence, machine learning reverses. Instead of the material world converting into a digital score, the score guides a way back into material experience. Numbers serve eyes, not the other way around. This is the killer distinction right here. The original skin lesion picture also receives a second overlay, a layer of color indicating exactly where the AI detected the information, resulting in diagnosis. So the doctor learns not only of a blue whitish veil, but precisely where on the lesion it can be found. Here again, explaining the AI does not mean adding still more digital information or another set of statistical methods to approximate which pieces of data contributed how much to prior statistical processing. Instead, explaining means translating the experience of interacting with the system into familiar and human modes of seeing, locating, touching. The machine is humanized, anthropomorphized. Thank you, ? Yeah, we'll see what happens, but I'm going to try to stream a good deal more, so thanks for stopping in. I appreciate it. We're reading a paper on AI and ethics and how synestemiotics. Thank you. Oh, well, how do you like that? The alerts are working.
Science Semiotics subscribe. Science Semiotics says the return.
Sorry, I hooked up way too many silly things in the interim. So yeah, I hope you saw the alert. I hope it wasn't ridiculously loud. And I did also throw in a text reader for shits and giggles. Completely forgot about it. I was thinking about the paper. Synestemiotics, thank you for the subscription. I really appreciate that. And yeah, we'll see what happens. I'll try to be back. So oh, that was funny. I completely forgot about my alerts, especially after putting so much time into them. Yeah, we're reading this paper on ethics and AI, so feel free to ask questions as always. All right. In Denmark, a different strategy. Instead of understanding, Blomberg and his team leveraged power. AI performed AI performance imposed trust. To force dispatcher respect for the cardiac arrests, the machine was tuned to defeat humans. While it is true that an abundance of false positive alerts got logged along the way, the hard fact remained that true cardiac arrest was detected faster by algorithms and data than by human listening and experience. If offered shits and giggles, you opt for the giggles every time. Well, I hope so. I mean, I love that little clip with Mako and Schwarzenegger from Conan the Barbarian. So, yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff. So if like people cheer bits, I got a different one. If someone gets banned, I got another one. Oh man, I love my ban, and I'm like, I so rare. I've never banned anyone. Actually, I've banned people once, a million years ago. So, but like yeah, so I got a bunch of ones. I'll try to get some more giggles going. Giggles are fun. And philosophy deserves more giggles. It's usually a giggle-less topic. We could use more giggles. I mean, let me. I feel like let me try that. Let's see if I can do that again. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna try and. Aristotle, my man.
Science Semiotics subscribe. Science Semiotics says the return.
Let me just Alright, do you guys want to see the band one? I love the band one. Tell me if you want to, but it's like good 30 seconds long. But yeah, I'll do it. And let me give my man Aris a shout out. If you guys like philosophical content, you should be checking out Aris up. And no, it does not work because the one thing that does not work, it does not read Twitch chat, and I can't freaking get this. I don't understand. Alright, I'm sorry my shoutouts are busted. Like, it's so weird. The one thing I expected to work, and it doesn't work. Like, I'm trying to do it again. Alright, whatevers.
You're winning, sir. Oh, thank you very much.
Science Semiotics gifted 1 bits. Science Semiotics says, hey guys, 1.
Thank you, Semiotics. Yeah, so I got my, you get the clip from, Casablanca for for the bits, so. Yeah, I went the whole, like, 30-second shot for that, like, your membership to the Continental has been by thine own hand revoked. Trigger warning? For what? Someone getting shot? This is already an 18+ stream. I guess I could have a trigger warning on that. Maybe that would be a good idea. I will think about that, since Semiotics, I know you're very sensitive to movies. But yeah. Good. You know, I really want a Miss Perkins prequel, like a backstory to Miss Perkins. I think that would be a fantastic spin-off. Like a Miss Perkins in the John Wick world, working her way up to being a top assassin. That I know, Semiotics, but like yeah, a Miss Perkins prequel. I'd just die for Miss Perkins prequel spin-off series before she dies in that scene. Yeah. Yeah, so do I have so I've got other stuff too. So if someone gifts a sub, I'm not asking you to gift a sub here, but like that's also a John Wick clip. And then do I have anything else? I have a follow. So if I get new follows, which I might get, but you'll see that too. So anyway, so we're talking about AIs and ethics. And basically the first group of people, they made an AI to give more visual information on cancer diagnoses of skin cancer. So they made an AI overlay. The other folks, in comparison, made basically an on or off thing, saying that the AI believes that there is a heart attack in progress and the person needs immediate help. And the problem with this was people just ignored it because there were too many false positives, and you get overloaded by. It's just really easy to get overloaded by excessive warning notices. And this happens is just, everyone nowadays gets too many emails. You ignore them after a while, especially if you get the same crap over and over and it's not 100% accurate, then you just can't do anything about it. So, okay. So let me continue here and see where these folks go. And please ask questions along the way. The idea of helping the human dispatchers catch up with the AI instead of leaving them behind, perhaps by developing software to clarify or augment the audio the dispatchers heard, was never broached in discussions with our group. Just the opposite, we learned that as the AI progressed, humanity reduced. Originally, the AI processed the raw audio of calls, thick with their anguish. However, the discovery was made that the background screams and lamentations were major sources of false positive alerts, and so a two-stage approach was developed. An initial filter eliminated human emotions by transcribing the calls into dry words, and then a second process analyzed the text for patterns in vocabulary, in sentences, in questions and answers, and in specific described characteristics. Blomberg explained that if the caller states that the subject is unconscious, then the probability of cardiac arrest rises. If blue lips are mentioned, the probability also rises. If both, the alarm illuminates. However, beyond that and a few similar anecdotes, there were no human-oriented discussion of the AI process, nothing that would make sense to a doctor. There were only the statistical outcomes of sensitivity, the detection of cardiac arrest, and specificity, the ratio of true cardiac arrests detected against false alerts, and how they could be improved. Though the model was partially open source, our group did not pursue a technical understanding of the explaining how the system worked because we were convinced that the winning human trust for the AI decisions would originate and remain with the parameters of performance defined as speed and accuracy. Ultimately, the objectivity, the mathematical certainties, were not just descriptions of functionality but conceptual rigidities that commanded respect by humiliating human subjectivity and uncertainty. This is a little over the top sentence, but that's fine. Basically, they said, screw your human abilities. The computer just gets it right more often. So that's it. While emergency call dispatchers considered and doubted and floundered and let seconds pass through their indecision, hard numbers responded. The result for the emergency call AI technology was a kind of trust not won from dispatchers so much as stamped onto them. As opposed to the previous case, which drew human explanations from an inanimate machine, here the power of inanimate machines was programmed to crush human doubt. Alright, so this is like a major, and I really like this paper because they're really showing the two ways that we interact with machines. Not so much that the machines give a rat's ass about what's going on. They've just got AI input and AI output. But the way we interact with them, the trust in the first case was when the machine pointed to really important characteristics and that we could see and then therefore respond to. And they would say, well, this combination of characteristics really means that the person has skin cancer. And this other one, it said there was nothing. It just says the person's got a heart attack, run. But the problem is, as soon as there's any doubt that the machine's wrong, no one's running anymore. As soon as there's doubt, no one cares. If you roll a dice and says, well, look, you've got a 90% chance that you're gonna die. Well, I feel fine right now, so screw you. It's like no one wants to do that. But if they said, look, this series of things they say, when added up, that leads to saying, there is a chance of a heart attack, even just that little bit would make a difference, but that wasn't given to the people. So, very interesting how we interact with the machines. And the question is, where's the ethics here? I'm not entirely sure, but like the question is, what is the ethical interaction here that we have with other people and with the machines? And so let's just keep our eyes open for that. Okay, so in actual practice in Copenhagen, the dispatchers were not crushed. They resisted by ignoring the technological prompts. But that failure does not change the nature of the strategy. It only requires still more engineering and perfecting. Which of the two paths to trustworthy AI is recommendable? Is it explainability so that the machine will be understood well, or accurate performance so the machine will work well? In the case for explainability flourished in German dermatologist offices, it was because the skin analyzing machine was finally understood well that it was allowed to work well. In the Danish emergency call center, a different choice was unavoidable. Faced with the reality that dispatchers were ignoring cardiac arrests, Blomberg could only tune his machine still tighter and press his mechanical advantage still harder because he knew that death hung on seconds. This is the stark reality he faced. No time to draw attention to keywords or to describe what was revealing in sentence patterns. No time to explain what linguistic cues triggered an alert, or even to determine whether there could be an explanation. The AI's flashing light could only present dispatchers a decision to be made instantaneously or to be made for them while they hesitated. In that way, cardiac arrest telephone calls resemble one-way airplane tickets and romantic passions and so many of the reasons we want to be alive in the first place. If you stop to ask why, it's already too late. You see, what they really should have done was not had a light on the dashboard of the drink. I'm not technically allowed to drink alcohol on command, but because that would conclude self-harm, but cheers. I had the water beforehand. Thank you, Twitch TOS. And thank you, question mark. What was I just saying? Yeah, they should have just bypassed the 911 dispatchers at that point. If you were relying on them to look at a light, you don't need them to look at the light. You need just to dispatch the medics immediately at that point, because why even bother? This is Brooklyn Brewery Bodega IPA, Bodega Run IPA. Well, I appreciate it. I still suggest you go to the pub. This will, of course, be uploaded later. But yeah, I'm happy you're here. Yeah. Yeah, so these sorts of systems, why are you relying on people at that point at all? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure the people don't appreciate getting bypassed by the computer, but they're just introducing human uncertainty at that point, as they say right here. Does this work? Do I have my highlighters working? Yeah. If you stop to ask why, it is already too late. So yeah. Okay, so yeah. For his part, Dengel's skin lesion team reminded our group of the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, stipulation that data subjects possess a right to explanation for any automated decision made by computer algorithms. That will have to change, though, because no one has the responsibility to try the impossible, and the cardiac arrest case demonstrates that under time's pressure and on the edge splitting of life and death, the only functional source for trust in the AI technology is power, as demonstrated by performance. The machine is faster than humans, which means that the proposal of a right to an explanation for an algorithmically generated decision is canceled by the demands of life itself. Not just that patients stay alive, but that the life with AI is worth living. Okay, so that's interesting. Saying not only are we trying to save you, but that this is a good way to save you. So that's an ethical claim right there, that this is worth living on top of it. Life with AI is worth living. I'm not sure that this is the case, but we're definitely trying it out at the moment. And the question is, when are you required to get this sort of explanation that the GDPR stipulates? You don't necessarily have to get your explanation that second, do you? You just have to know that there is an explanation that could be given to you at some time when, there is a chance to do that. That's all. So I don't know if this actually makes sense, because this paragraph here makes sense, because you could still get an explanation out of it. It might be hard, but you could still get one out. You could reverse engineer the process the computer took to it. It would just take some time, but it still exists. Still, the question remains, where does the line get drawn? In which instances should trust be built on humanized knowledge about AI decisions, and when should trust be sought through algorithmic power? More cases will need to be studied, but what these two indicate is that when the moment is critical and the risk is high, power is better than knowledge. Yeah, you want to save more people than not save more people when you have the ability to save more people. I mean, assuming that's just like a thing to do in general. But like I said, the power is better than knowledge in the second, but the knowledge is better overall in the long term. But it's not, like I said, this is not a strict trade-off, because you can go back and reverse engineer the steps that computer took. So, I mean, I think that makes sense. So I don't see what exactly the argument is right here. I think this is a little bit overblown. Okay. Trustworthy or reliable? Trustworthy AI is the titular goal of the European Commission publications on AI ethics, but should it be? Joanna Bryson and Mark Ryan advocate for a shift towards inanimate reliability, and that transition gains support from ground-up work from investigating that begins from sincere psychological attitudes and bare human experiences. This is bare experience. Trust is inseparable from betrayal. If there was no dishonesty or infidelity, then we would not need the concept of trustworthiness. We would not even have it. We could not. We would not even have it. We could not have it. As Derrida has demonstrated, these kinds of dialectic word pairings are not just opposites or contrasts, they are episodes of codependence. Each requires the other in order to produce linguistic meaning. The simplest example may be honesty and lies. If no one ever told the truth, it would be impossible to invent the word or even the idea of lying. This paradox explains why no one calls actors liars, even when we are absorbed in the lies their character tells. And it explains the peculiar linguistic experience called bullshitting according to Frankfurt. Words and claims that are neither truths nor lies, just absurdities. Yeah, this is all fair. But so are they really going to go try and make a computer that'll lie to us? Is that what we're talking about here? I don't know. In lived experience, the fundamental distinction is not between trust on one side and betrayal on the other. Instead, it is between a reality of trust entwined with betrayal on one side and other realities without either one. As machines are enveloped in language, they too are subjected to distinction, both or either. I'm sorry, the paper is busted. The one thing I tried to get working, but let me grab it for you. So. I mean, this is the one thing that has never broken before. And it broke the minute I tried streaming. So. Now, I just want to make a claim. The authors here just got very philosophy of languagey and talking about, okay, you need to have both of these things and linguistically. I'm not sure how bad this is. Yes, in the abstract, you need the contraries. Of course, you need the contraries. Otherwise, up and down don't make sense if they're unless they're taken together. Of course, you need up and down. Otherwise, there is no the opposite directions don't make any sense. These are, when it comes to human things like trustworthy and lying, these are way more complex things. So the idea that they're codependent, yeah, that's right. But you may not need full codependence to understand them, you know? You may have some degree of trustworthiness versus like not, like being trustworthy versus not trustworthy. You might not also need to have the concept of lying. Like things can be sliced up. So especially in this like sort of very complex human interaction. So something. Aristotle says, at best it's a heuristic point. There is no way it is a logical necessity. Yeah, exactly. The logic here, I mean, if you want to talk about the logic, that's fine. But these are human things. Trustworthiness is not something that you ascribe to like a proposition. It's either true or false usually. So you don't have a trust factor on those. So Aristotle says predicates don't have to be binaries. They can be part of a larger class. For example, modes of speech or modes of verbal cooperation. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You can have like subsets of things. You can have things that are related to each other in more complex ways than just contraries or binaries. So, yeah. But I think the author is going to get to it. Tropical Geek, welcome in, welcome in. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. Yeah, trying to get back to streaming. I had some time right now, and my brain was fried anyway, so I was like, you know, perfect time to drink a beer and read some philosophy. Good to see you. So we're reading a paper on ethics and AI, and where should AI enter into our ethical considerations in the sense of where should AI, cool. Where should AI interact with us? Like, how should it act? Where in our experience should it interact that we can make ethical decisions? Is sort of what this author has been talking about. All right, so it is easy to write that trustworthiness is attractive and that deceit is repellent, but judging from how we live, any neutral observer would conclude the opposite. Deception and dishonesty are alluring. The evidence is everywhere, but most immediately in our movies and literature, in the places where we choose to spend our time. We are drawn to infidelity while scrolling Netflix. We seek deceit while standing in front of the book racks at the airport. And if these quotidian examples are too crass, then there is the arousal Shakespeare summons from his audience as Brutus plunges his dagger into Caesar's back. It is not a psychotic delight in blood, but the thrill of betrayal captured in Caesar's recognition that it was Brutus too, not just callous assassins driven impersonally by thirst for power. All of this, finally, is inseparable from trustworthiness. It is the way the word and concept gain meaning. And all those who venerate the trustworthy are equally engaged by the dark compliments, whether they admit it or not. I mean, come on, a little over the top there, my friends, but fine. I mean, point stands. If you're going to talk about trustworthiness, you're going to have to talk about deceit, and that's how you're going to understand things. It follows that if machines are going to be trusted, if we are going to talk and write about them that way, there is a requirement, a condition of the possibility of being trustworthy, that they also betray. If the machine wins our trust when it works well, then the machine's failures are not sites of error so much as scenes of unfaithfulness. The AI that falsely signals a cardiac arrest to an emergency dispatcher is not wrong, it is duplicitous, and the result should not be disappointment, but guilt. Well, okay, now we've gone, as far as I'm concerned, like a little off the rails here. The author slides from epistemic reliability to AI to trustworthiness in a moral sense. Exactly. We've gone, thank you, Viewbot. It's like we've completely gone from, as trustworthy, Viewbot says, at the epistemic, like the percentage of being right, to the moral sort of duplicity of being like ethically wrong. This is a wild point. I don't think they made the argument for it, but the question is it entirely wrong? I don't know if it's entirely wrong, because if we're dealing with people, we also make this slide too. Maybe not as dramatic as like these people are talking about in terms of like computers, but we also say, well, we know some people are reliable, and when people fail, we do blame them for being duplicitous, even though, you know, people are only so reliable ever. Like, it's also the thing. So even though I think this is completely over the top right here, they're not like 100% wrong, they're just mostly wrong. Viewbot says, true, there are conceptual connections, ethics of belief, etc. Yeah. So, like, you can definitely pull a thread through here. Like, I don't know if it's like if you can get like a full-on rope, but like there's a thread that connects these things together. Now, what's the guilt? Here's the question. Yeah, all right. So I just glanced at the next paragraph, but I want to say one more thing here. What are we going to blame this computer for? If it's like always signaling when someone has a heart attack, but it over signals. There's so many false positives. There's so many false positives. As I was saying earlier, you get warnings fatigue. Too many warnings leads to fatigue, and you ignore them. There's the question. There's a fatigue factor there, and the computer does not understand human fatigue. It is a failure of the person setting it up that allowed for fatigue to come in. So there is definitely duplicity there, but it is not the computer's fault. It is the operator who set up the AI that did not appreciate the level of fatigue induced by this sort of thing. So that's where I would go in. But like it now, is that the AI's fault? Maybe a little bit, but it was that's a design failure in my opinion. Aristotle says, one of the core questions, why judge a machine in human virtues or character traits? In what way are we making those attributions? Does the author literally think that the AI is trustworthy or deceitful, or is it something we just can't help but attribute to the AI? And Tropical Geek says, for doing what it was programmed to do, the programmer responsibility. All right, so there's two things here. Let me start with Aristotle. I don't think we are going to get out, as Viewbot Prime was saying and I was saying earlier, I don't think we can disentangle all the issues in reality. Yes, we can do that in philosophy where we can separate epistemic and ethics just like that. Be like, you can separate them. We've slid from the epistemic possibility to a moral realm too easily here, and we can say that. But in, I think, real life, that there is a connection there, and we're going to make that. We're going to do that slide sometimes anyway. So, it's just like that's the sort of thing that's going to happen. So the question is, how bad is that, and how responsible? Like, it could happen. I think we're going to attribute some sort of ethics to the AI inevitably because that's the sort of thing we're going to do that. I don't think like the AI is responsible, though. I think that's like something we have to understand about when we put these things together. It's a little over the top that these people are saying that the AI isn't somehow guilty. Like, that's a little crazy. But Tropical Geek says, for doing what was programmed to do, the programmer responsibility. We do actually have a lot of time and effort into user interface design. If someone makes a shitty user interface, it is kind of their fault if someone can't use it when it's supposed to be like readily usable. There was a case around here where someone got stuck on some train tracks, and it was like a full SUV of people, like 5 people in SUV got hit by a train, and people were trying to figure it out because apparently they were stuck there for like a good 40 seconds, like plenty of time to move the truck. Turned out that one truck had a slightly different shifting system than like almost all the other trucks. And the truck that the operator had used before, it was a new truck, had a different shifting system. And so they think what happened was, instead of going reverse or forward, they got stuck in neutral because they got nervous and they went back to the way that they used to shift. And so they got hit by the train because the interface design was not what was expected. And so, hello Nopolito, thank you. So in some sense, the car and the machine and the whatever computer they had in the car, because this was just a few years ago, there is a thing there, it did exactly what it was supposed to do, but the interface design was screwed up, and there's where the issue arose, that the interface design was not set up to work with people. And that's the same problem here. The light going off and on is not set up to work with people in the right way. And now, who's guilty for setting up the interface design? It ain't the programmer that figured out how to get the AI to work great. It's the way the AI is integrated into our life, which I think is the point of this paper that this is the sort of thing we're going to have to work on, really. How do we work with AI to make it work for us? Thanks for stopping by, Nopolito. Thank you for the drink. Yeah, so these people are, they want to full on blame the AI though, which, yeah, they're going to just give it guilt. All right. And very reasonably, I think. That never happens though, not remotely. In our group's extensive work with two very different startups trying to promote trustworthy AI, not once did a single ethicist, engineer, lawyer, or doctor define false outputs as dishonesty, infidelity, deception, lies, betrayal. No one invoked the ideas of being tempted by a false positive. It occurred to no one to propose that the light on the emergency call dashboard was winking, trying to lure the dispatcher's attention and seduce with insincere promises. When the machine was wrong, it was just wrong. That was all. Insincere promises. I mean, I like these people. I really like these people. I like how they're like talking about this stuff. I think it's a lot of fun. I think they're dead wrong in this case, but this is just great. Ultimately, the problem with trustworthy AI and the reason the idea should be abandoned for the neutral and inanimate term of reliability is not that we cannot force ourselves as humans to trust the machines. Probably we can. The problem is what waits on the other side of that trust, mechanical duplicity. So even if we grant that algorithms could be trustworthy, a complete understanding of what that means requires that we also acknowledge engaging with the acidic joys of betrayal. For the human experience of encountering AI today, that joy is inconceivable. Aristotle says it's a poetic thought, but it's anthropomorphized the machine excessively so. Absolutely. I mean, the acidic joys of betrayal. Are we going to be having acidic joys of betrayal when someone dies of a heart attack because we sent our limited medical resources to one person and not the other? Is that what we're talking about here? No, you're gonna have a cold sweats saying I trusted the machine and in this one instance someone died because of it, but it saved a bunch of other people. It is just going back to the old utilitarian arguments, like you did what you did at the time because this was the maximizing happiness deal, and somebody is going to get screwed eventually. Like, it's just going to happen. Yeah. So finally, and stated positively, the way we speak in the real world when machines fail dictates the way we must respond when they succeed. With failure, we feel disappointment, and we talk about error and incorrect outputs. We speak about the opposite of reliability. With success, consequently, the decision is already made. AI can be reliable, but not trustworthy. And see, this is right. In the end, they're saying, well, we can't... We have to just go with reliability, not trustworthy, because no one's gonna do that, and it's crazy. But like, yeah, like I was saying to a tropical geek earlier, there's more to the program than just the outputs. It's the user interface design, and that makes a big difference here. And in the first example, the user interface was an overlay to show where what the computer thought was indicators of cancer. In the thing where it says, look, there's a heart attack or not, the user interface design was wrong here. It shouldn't have been on the dispatcher's, it shouldn't have been a dispatcher warning light. It should have gone directly to the nearest medic saying, you have to get your ass over here immediately because the computers are showing an emergency situation. Now the question is, would the medics stop responding at that point because they were getting too many false positives? Maybe. But, like if the medics this is their job in some sense, get to the emergency situation, then maybe, like, I don't know. That's the question. Because then you're just passing it along. But if the medics can't tell what is an emergency or not, they just have to go as fast as they can. Maybe that's all it takes, is just bypassing any decision and just tell the medics just go. And that would be a different user interface, and I think that's what makes the difference here. Okay. 5. Protection or performance. A sentence with jarring implications appears near the end of our group's report on the Copenhagen emergency case. Under the forthcoming medical device regulation in the European Union, the AI system will be classified as a medical device, and it would therefore need EC certification. Aristotle says, but what's kind of interesting here is that machine behavior seems a bit more reliable than human behavior. Humans are fluid and change with situation and time. AI generally doesn't, at least not in the narrow AI we have today. Yes, but it's, the AI is very limited. Like, the AI does one thing. The AI in this case is only telling you that they think there's a heart attack. A person has to make a million judgments about all sorts of, domestic abuse, terrorist scenarios, medical problems. So it's not it's very narrowly reliable. And so the question is, what kind of reliability is that? It's only reliable in a very, very narrow sliver of experience. And so it's not more reliable than human behavior, because we are more reliable than it over the long run. It is only in that narrow slice. So it's got to be it's hard to think about, because the way that the computer can interact with us is very different than how we interact with anything else. Okay. Blomberg would not have been able to initiate his experiment today. Medically certifying the AI would swamp development in regulations, permissions, approvals, and ethical safeguards. One obstacle would be the GDPR, and for good reason. The telephone calls are tortured. A victim collapses in agonal wheezing. Loved ones frantically seek a reason as the lips tint blue. No one knows what to do, and gawking onlookers deepen the helplessness. In disorienting environment of cardiac arrest, some people will lose control over themselves. Others will maintain control, will have no idea how to exhibit their own identity. Either way, regulatory protections promulgated for personal information in the ethical region of human dignity were crafted for these moments. This is when privacy matters. If tragic emergency calls are not shielded from commodification of machine learning, it is difficult to imagine what human experience could possibly be considered protected. And on this point, and this just happened in the last few weeks, there was a private company that was buying this sort of data off an emergency services, like 911 calls here in the US, and people lost their shit, rightly, because they were buying these audio tapes, and the backlash was so bad that the one municipality that was selling those audio tapes had to backtrack and cancel the contract. But this literally just happened, in the last 2 months. Okay, but commodification works. The machine recognizes cardiac arrest and lives can be saved. Well, okay, let me finish this up. All right, no, I want to say this. Again, why do we say that this is a black box? It may be hard to separate out what is going on in this case. That doesn't mean it can't be done. It might be doable. It may not be doable at that time, but is that really a problem? As long as we can go back and look, a week later, when we have more time. The dilemma is bottomless, and another example of why seeking absolute answers to legitimate ethical questions is misguided. Genuine ethics aims for the limit where it is simultaneously true that it is impossible to decide, and a decision must be made. Blomberg was there, faced the impossibility, and decided. AI development proceeded. In 2019, Tesla disabled major components of its autopilot feature in nations where some vehicle safety regulations were promulgated. The restrictions embodied a commitment to safeguard against artificial intelligence harms and risks, even at the cost of advances in AI development and application. They also foreshadowed the regulatory paradox that Blomberg initially escaped, but now cannot. More regulations, equally less regulating, because innovation is stymied until there is nothing left to restrict. It's yeah, but I mean, there's also a reason we don't have human testing. Yes, you can't do as innovative things, but for damn good reason. Aristotle says, black box problems are usually used with AI that are so technical that no one can understand what's going on with them, or be so protected by intellectual property laws, regulations that you can't get access to the algorithm. That's right. That's That's exactly what the issue is usually. But there's a question like, is that actually an application for the heart attack monitor? Clearly, even these authors said earlier that there were some things that could actually be extracted. Okay, yeah, cool. You're disagreeing. But the question is, like, is there anything else to that? I mean, you hit the two big ones as far as I understand the problem, but like maybe there's further things that can be done. I'm not sure. Yeah, okay. It does not need to be that way. AI ethics can be reconceived to catalyze innovation. The direct strategy is to credit ethically, not just technically and economically, AI that performs well. Oh my god, they want to like, like give like a treat to ethics or to AIs that act ethically. I think this is a terrible idea. The proposal is that performance is a value and it emerges for this reason. One of the most frustrating aspects of our group's interactions with Dengel's skin lesion team and Bloomberg's cardiac arrest group was that we found no way to unambiguously account for their pure engineering accomplishments. Instrumental value was easy to locate. Both technologies are worth having for the indirect reason that they save lives. There is something more than that, though. The skin lesion explainability wrapper and the cardiac arrest language filter each stand on their own without regard for their human benefits as small but identifiable triumphs of design. Some engineers grasp this with their concept of code quality, but regardless of the term, in our group's experience, it explained the disjunction between AI doing and what is done. Performance runs along that first vector, not the second, and along the performance scale, elevating levels of quality become increasingly rewarding regardless of what is done. In AI ethics from the ground up, pure performance is a value because algorithmic designers find that high quality is worth having on its own. Tropical Geek says, have you guys watched the series Raised by Wolves? The ethics and religion themes are really good. I have not. I've heard of it, but I have not watched that TV show, I think. Yeah. So, again, I think this author is failing to see that there's more to interface design than I think there's more to interface to design than these authors are giving credit for. They're saying, look, the instrumental things where it's showing you what the skin lesion explainability wrapper is and the cardiac language filter. Yeah, those are great, and they're calling that a design, but that's actually not a human interface design. That is a technical design feature that these programs have, that they have outputs, but they do not actually talk about how it is integrating with people. The reason brought it up is that an AI is sent to become the mother of a new race. Oh, fun. That sounds like good times. Send a AI and be like, have at it, Haas. Have a planet or something. I mean, to be fair, we make like computer games, computer programs. I didn't see the new Matrix. I thought this had to be something with it. But like you have a simulation and then you have an AI that like generates little life forms in your simulation. How is that like any different here? I mean, I think that's basically the same thing on a small scale. Okay, there is a parallel here with functionalist architecture like the Bauhaus or Pompidou Center. For those buildings, functionality transcends its native role and becomes form. The building's inner workings, the stairways and water pipes, are its decoration. Analogously, for AI that functions well, the practical transcends its instrumental role and becomes an end in itself. So, AI that is worth doing because of what it does well, serves doctors and patients, becomes AI that is worth doing because it does well. The ethical value of performance is intrinsic. And you can see right in this paragraph, right here, is exactly where they've missed the point. What is a stairwell? A stairwell is a human interface design to get people to go up, to let people go places. That is the one thing the stairway is not. The only function of a stairway is to interface with people to get us to move from floor to floor. Just because, and that is what's important here. The AI is just the output. There is nothing here that it allows us to do. So, What the fucking Aristotle? Weighing performance in a vacuum is dangerous. There is no end to the human catastrophes occasioned by exquisitely functioning machines, and advocating pure performance as an ethical value requires acknowledging this. Even death mechanisms like nuclear bombs can be majestic accomplishments, awesome with all the word implies. The best descriptor may be consense of the sublime, the feeling of reason's power and superiority over nature. In this way, performance as value resembles philosophical approaches to painted art. There is a transcendent dimension to its existence, one that escapes the chemical composition of the oils applied to the canvas and the money generated or lost. The history of the work's transfer from one to another owner. There is an escape from the effects of the work produces. There is an escape from the effects the work produces as a material object. Aristotle says, I don't get it. Intrinsic value doesn't much make sense to me because I'm a moron, but it doesn't make sense here at all. Yeah, well, I think what they really meant was in the previous sentence. It's this stuff. It says AI is worth doing because it does well. It is making good. They're just doing the utilitarian line because it is it has good outcomes. That's all I think they meant to say. The intrinsic thing, I think, is they're overdoing their literary flourish. So. Yeah. I get the sense that these are... I don't know who wrote this. I didn't look carefully at the authors' names. They clearly know their stuff, but I don't know if they know like all the ins and outs of modern like meta ethics and stuff, and like or metaphysics, where the intrinsic is kind of a technical word. So yeah, I mean, it's this previous sentence that AI is worth doing because it does good. Like it does things that we think are important. Okay, it is difficult to credit that escape with today's conventional AI ethics. The escape is particularly elusive for those working inside the European Commission's ethics guidelines for trustworthy AI. The guidelines does include the value of accuracy, but it is buried deep in the document underneath the 4 pillars and then within the category of technical robustness and safety. Defined dryly as the ability to make correct judgments, the idea of simple accuracy is as narrow as it is desiccated. Performance is expansive. In the cardiac arrest case, quickness was as critical as accuracy. In the skin lesion case, the output's elegance was as encouraging as the raw calculations of correct predictions. AI that performs well is not only correct and accurate, but agile and graceful. You see, this is funny. They were just saying how important the correctness was, and now they're talking about agility and grace. This is getting a little odd for me. I think these authors, I agree with them, but I think they lost the thread slightly here. As drawn from our working experience, the 4 traits of performance as value in AI ethics are: intrinsically valuable, the only justification required is engineering excellence; independent, the technology is evaluated without regard for its material effects on humans or the world. Yeah, well, Aristotle asked if they're utilitarian or not. You think there's something else? Oh, they started off talking about Kant right in the beginning, so I think they're some sort of pseudo-Kantians. I don't think they're utilitarian either. Expansive. The ingredients of performance, what counts as success, cannot be known, defined, or checklisted beforehand any more than the qualities of venerated art can be named before the work is done. The dimensions of accomplishment are only appreciated after the culmination. Balancing. Performance can counter ethical shortcomings. An AI tool that performs flawlessly, for example, does not need to be explainable or transparent. Alright. I just want to register my dislike of these 4 points. I can almost guarantee that they're not mutually consistent. Like the idea that you're going to be able to get one thing that actually does all these things, I don't think this makes any sense. Like these all sound great, but I don't think you can take them all together, because the only justification required is engineering excellence, and then you've got 3 more points after that. Like, how do you have 3 more points after you're saying the only justification is engineering excellence. It has to stop right there. Like, that's the whole point. Like, if this is the only justification, the paper has to end right here. Like, seriously. like someone explain this to me. Like how a philosopher, I don't want to say how a philosopher makes this sort of silliness. It's just they want to say a few things and they're not realizing that they're overdoing it. It's like, it's just a little bit, they got overexcited. That's all. The central significance of performance as value is that it transforms the role of AI ethics. It fundamentally reorients mainstream approaches as they are represented by the EC ethics guidelines. Aristotle says, unless the other three criteria define engineering excellence, whatever that term means. Yeah, but again, okay. So that's a good suggestion. Maybe this is just bad formatting, like just the paper's formatted poorly. So, well, it's hard to say because they say the 4 traits of performance are, and then they go through. But say, okay, the number 1's the most important, then the 2 through 4 are just bullet, like our notes on the first one. Again, it's independent. That's fine. That's how you evaluate the valuability. The expansive. What counts as success cannot be known, defined, or checklisted beforehand. Then how is it the only justification is engineering excellence if you have no idea what that is? I mean, you can figure it out later, sure. But, like, that's hindsight. Very strange. The dimensions of accomplishment are only appreciated after the culmination. And balance. Yeah. We could keep rereading these. I don't know if we're going to get anywhere with them. All right. The guidelines place the burden on developers to show that their products are trustworthy, which implies fulfilling requirements including those established to protect personally identifying information. Only then will innovations like Blomberg's emergency call AI be approved for work out in the world. The addition of performance, accuracy, speed, elegance to the first line of AI ethics can reverse the priorities. If a machine functions sufficiently well, then it is the regulators who carry the burden of showing why the technology should be constrained. Because creative engineering is understood as intrinsically good and worth pursuing, the burden for justifying restrictions fall towards the restrictors. Yeah, I mean, you say James Brusseau is a philosopher, pretty heavily continental. Yeah, I mostly agree with everything being said here, and I think it's a good paper. It's just this argumentation in the section's killing me. That's all. I mean, I disagree with the the outcome orientedness of this. I think as I've been saying, the interface design is completely missed here, and so the author has not realized some of the causes of the difficulty with the heart monitor issue. Okay. So it is now the regulators and the other part is, and you can see it right in this sentence. This is a very telling sentence as far as I can say. It says, instead of the creators proving themselves to regulators, it is regulators who must prove to the creators. So this is a tech fanboy is what this guy is. He's giving in and just saying let the technology people have at it, which is a terrible idea when it comes to ethics. Terrible. This is like the history of humanity. The people have done terrible things in the name of progress, and every time we do that, it has just been like, no, we should not be doing that. It's a terrible idea. Yeah, counter to justice, counter to like everything we've learned in human history, but like this is the problem. This person has ceded the whole point of justice to the tech bros, which is like terrible. Do not do that. So yeah, and I'm not even saying the tech bros are all bad people. They're fine. Many of them are very smart and ethically oriented. But thank you, Cinesemi.
You're winning, sir. Oh, thank you very much.
I love that.
Science Semiotics gifted 100 bits. Science Semiotics says eligible 100.
Thank you, Cinesemiotics. Aristotle says AI has been used to exclude people from mortgages. It sells people high interest loans. It sells people on for-profit colleges. Yes, it's like in all areas that we've brought this technology in, people use it basically to suppress other people also. Additionally, Aristotle says AI isn't morally neutral. AI is made by people. You have to be critical of it. Yeah. So, all right, I think at least me and Aristotle and probably a bunch of other people here, I haven't heard any dissenters, this is like a terrible statement that I've just highlighted. Instead of the creators proving themselves to the regulators, it's now the regulators who must prove to the creators. No. Just no. Okay. In some cases, the proving will be easy and the addition of performance to AI ethics imperceptible. Take the example of social media recommendation algorithms attuned to maximize users' anger and frustration. In that case, like so many others, the ethics of individual human autonomy and collective social welfare easily overcomes the value of the predictive analytics accomplishment. Just because the machine works does not mean it should be built. In close calls, however, in cases resembling the cardiac arrest AI, where real human dangers weigh against significant benefit, the accomplishment of the machine itself may prove decisive. If there is no way to be certain beforehand whether an AI ultimately helps or harms humanity, if the technology performs, then that value endorses and potentially justifies pushing ahead through the unknown. Yes, if we are trying to save human lives, yeah, we should try that as opposed to not trying to save human lives. That is like not what most people are doing with anything, though. That is like a rare case. We should give special dispensation to someone who has a heart attack monitoring system. Fine, but like just doing it the other, just telling everyone to have at it, and then having to worry about like playing catch up later with the justice. Just no. Okay. Ultimately, there are two conceptions of AI ethics, one without and the other with performance as value. One postures defensively against risks, the other leans forward to catalyze opportunities. There will be no way to know which is preferable until it is too late. Yes, there is. We already know which one's too late. Just as there are no obviously right or wrong places to draw the line between AI ethics as protecting humanity from innovation and AI ethics as stimulating more of it. But there are different places. Aristotle says, this paper is borderline contradictory. It's got clear sentences when taken individually, but when read together, the paper doesn't make sense. I kind of liked the first half of the paper. When they got to the second half, I just, like, their analysis of the problem, insofar as, like, what they said, I thought was good when they were discussing both the two cases, the heart attack monitor and the cancer detector. That was solid, I thought. I didn't agree with all of it, but that's fine. I don't have to agree with everything. I thought they did a good job. This over anthropomorphizing the AI and then treating it like that and then saying have at it is a little bit too much for me. Let's finish up the conclusion because it's only 2 more paragraphs, and then we can discuss a little bit more. Conclusion. In the beginning of philosophy, Plato taught that ethics was about purification. Knowledge became truer as it increased in abstraction and decreased in humanity. The lightheadedness of intellectual exploration was better than the buzz of wine, the desire of mathematics more passionate than sex. The premise of this paper is that Platonic urges have limited AI ethics. Overbalancing principles against practice forces us to believe that we only need to get the abstract sterile theory right, and then application in the slippery world will come as an afterthought. This essay is an exercise in reversing the thinking. Instead of learning about the world by escaping upward from it, knowledge is produced by dividing down into the work of real AI developers as they crash into human dilemmas. Readers will draw varied conclusions about the explainability and performance, and about trustworthiness and reliability, and about the intrinsic value of innovation, but the underlying assertion is that those conclusions will emerge stronger from the ground of lived human experiences than from cloistered philosophy. Okay. The author does a very nice moral justification for what they just said here at the end. You know, they built themselves up. Still, you don't do stuff willy-nilly if you don't. I'm not saying don't innovate. Innovate is great. But if you're going to actually put this out into the world, which these people want to do, you can't just be like, all right, we're going to, redline people from getting loans, and then you just have the old structures of power keeping, the minorities down because we don't like them anymore and we're just using greater tech to do it. That is a terrible idea. Like, it's just horrible. And it's like, well, the idea of like not doing that because like, oh, that's cloistered philosophy. It's like that was hard fought results to know not to do that. This is the point, is that we have learned something over the time. Aristotle says, of course, the giant fucking irony is that the author writes abstruse philosophy that leaves lived experience as soon as he talks about AI in human terms and starts to say regulators have to justify themselves to creators as a priority because creators are the less faultless. Yeah, absolutely. This is such an ironic second half of the paper that people who are doing stuff because it is going to help us after all the hard work solving cancer, all of that's a huge thing. Like, let's solve cancer, that'd be a great idea, but that has taken hundreds of years of medical technology and ethical technology to know how to go about solving this sort of problem. The same thing with heart attacks. Like, these are massive problems in today's society that if we had better solutions to, we would be much better off. AI is one way of doing that, but that doesn't mean you give everyone the willy-nilly. These are two medical things that are very important. Cancer and heart attacks are just like, that's because those are the end result of the ethics, not something that we have to say, oh, and we have all this tech and now let's apply it to them. No, we already knew the ethics because we have worked so hard at them. Abstruse double word score, yeah. I mean, this person, I have to give them credit. I thought they wrote well. They used some more interesting words, and they were talking about tech at the same time of talking about technical topics. So they did a very good job in the writing. I think the philosophy in the second half fell apart because they're like right here, this whole thing where the only justification required is engineering excellence, and then they go on to say a whole bunch of other stuff. It's like one or the other. Pick one, dude. So, now, I also want to be a little bit more sympathetic to the author. Even at the end, I think they may have recognized it themselves. They said this essay is an exercise in reversing the thinking. They may have been sort of devil's advocating in the second half of this essay, where they almost clearly went over the top anthropomorphizing artificial intelligence. And so they may have done this on purpose. I don't know. Yeah, there's nothing more in the paper. But that's the thing. If you're going to go over the top, you might as well say that and be like, I don't even believe this myself. Yeah. Like Aristotle says, like if I were a referee, I would have probably issued a reject verdict. The first half seems good. The second half is so strange that I can't parse what's going on. I can parse what's going on. I just think it's crap. Yeah, what I think, well, it's not crap. I think it's basically they went overboard on their position. And that's okay in some sense. I don't think they wrote it great I mean, their arguments sort of fell apart, but I understand what they're trying to do. Where'd they do it? Yeah, it's this bit right up here where they say we're going to start treating machines to be faithful or guilty or duplicitous or lying. Like, no. Just like, no, that's not what's going on. That completely misunderstands the technology, I think. But if you're going to make this sort of concession, which they do right here, they're going to talk and write about them that way. That is a requirement, the possibility of being trustworthy, that the computers also betray. If you're going to do this sort of thing, then that's fine. This is just turned into like a work of very speculative philosophy, which I am okay with. But like, you should be more clear that how speculative this really is. So, yeah. And Aristotle is got the doubt face right now, and I'm with him on that. But yeah, so that's the question. Like, it's a little annoying that the second half kind of ruined a very good or very interesting first half analysis. Where they were talking about some really interesting cases, and there could have been other things to say, and they went overboard in one way. Aristotle says, in speculative sci-fi, the kind of technology required for a machine required to inform intentions and complex psychological dispositions is way beyond us right now. Yeah, I think that's part of the issue, is that the author does not quite understand No, that's unfair. Is that they have granted the AI technology too much. They've over is that you're saying it's way beyond us right now? I kind of agree that it's way beyond us. I don't think the author sees it that way, and they have not really justified their position of their full anthropomorphization. They're basically reading off our linguistic experience that we talk about AIs as being like trustworthy and unreliable and having all sort of these anthropomorphized traits. But does that actually mean that they have it, or is that just like a way of speaking about them because that's the way we normally speak about stuff? I'd go with, you can talk about like this can of beer as being unreliable if I want to, or untrustworthy. That doesn't mean it has trustworthy or it's gonna lie to me. Like, just because I can talk about it doesn't mean that's the way the world is. So that's really the issue here, is that I think they drank a little too much of their own Kool-Aid. Okay. Anyone else have any questions about this? Like, this was a reasonably successful return stream for me, so yeah, and so there might be good uses for talking about things that way. Yeah, I completely agree. It's just I think they drank their own Kool-Aid. They weren't very clear about that, and then they sort of, they were talking to themselves more than they were talking to us in the second half of the paper. I mean, it was okay. I understood what they were going for. I mean, but it got confused. What they were like, their presentation got confused. It's all right. So, okay, yeah. Anybody else have any last questions? I thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. Things mostly worked on my stream setup, so I thank you all for your feedback and your comments and all that stuff. And thank you, Cinesemiotics, for the bit and the sub. And yeah, I appreciate it. So, let's see, do I have any other fun things I can do? Oh, let me do the follow alert real quick. Did it work? There we go.
I salute you.
I love that. Thank you, Viewbot Prime, for being here. Another paper. Dude, I want to just run away at this point, Cinesemiotics. Things have been shit. Things have been shit. And so I'm like, I just was like, let me get one good one in. I fear that if I try to do another one, I will lose my mind or something will break. I'm running away. I apologize. And that's all it is. I'm running away. But you know what? Yeah. Question mark. Yeah. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Is there anyone we can raid real fast? Let's see if someone's up. You know what? Screw it. Let's Wiener Tits up. I don't love Wiener Tit. I like Wiener Tit. I'm not as enamored as Aristotle is with Wiener Tit, but Wiener Tit is great. So I'm going to do a little raid just because, why not? Did I spell Wiener Tit correctly now? I think so. Yes, thank you all for being here. And the raid has been created. Let's see if it's actually working. I don't know. Have a good night, everyone. I appreciate it. So thank you all for being here. I will try to be streaming more. I don't have a schedule yet. I have nothing planned. I'm going to try to get the things that broke today fixed. And let's go say hi to Wiener Tit, because she's good people and she's an artist. She makes fun things, videos and claymation, and it's cool. So let's say hi to Wiener Tit. Bye bye.